Welcome back to Fat Chat and the Back Snap and the Fat Back and the Boogie and the Bear. Sorry, this is Dreadlock, aka King Bear Sadat. Here with my man Ed Lyles. Ed, what's happening?
Hey, I don't have a cool name like you.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
got to work on something.
You got the mad coolness all around you. But it's so
Right.
funny. He was like, you guys look at each other after the game. I started thinking about the line in Stripes. He goes, "Are either of you homosexual?" And they start looking at each other. He goes, "No, we're not, but we're willing to try." No, we're willing to learn. That's what he says. No, but listen, I wanted to get on this subject, man. I want to talk about hatred and the proliferation of hatred in America, and really just the idea that somebody could say, just the idea that people that there's a portion of America who doesn't really understand how toxic hatred really is. And they don't really understand, I think they don't understand how hurtful hatred can be. And you hear statements like, we're tired of this politically correct culture, wherein someone has to be careful of what they say for in the case that it might hurt someone else, and that the idea of thinking about someone else's feelings somehow is foolishness or a waste of time. It's insane to me. I just don't understand why it's okay to hate people. I don't understand that.
Well, this country was the foundation of this nation was built on hatred. You have to understand, they came over, there were a race of people, a group of people here that had their own civilization, culture, education, everything. They killed over between 80 and 100 million Native Americans. And then in the backside of that, then they had slavery. So this society was built for the white man himself. The white women didn't even have a right to vote here. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, the white male has been the watermark, and everything else falls by the wayside. And I was out doing a charity ride once, and we were out in Alabama, New York. You may have never been there, but you're not missing much. And you could just see Americana, the Trump stickers, the Confederate. We're in New York, and they got Confederate flags and Trump stickers everywhere. And it's like, wow, I never knew these people thought like this. But you can see the White House, the picket fence, the Chevy truck in the driveway. This is the Americana that the white man or white people just hold so sacred, and they don't want nobody messing with that. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can put a one or two, like they say, you can put one or two little black jelly beans or Spanish or whatever, Arab or something like that in there, but that's all they want. They don't want any. They'll have a little sprinkle of flavor, but not much more than that.
I mean, honestly, it's like the Charlton Heston line from, or it's not Charlton Heston line, but it actually the whole idea that you can, take my gun from my cold dead hands. They're holding on to racism or their pecking order, despite whether or not it's right or wrong. It's just insane to me. But the thing I wanted to really kind of get at was the idea is that how do people not evolve? Like how do we, you know, okay, no,
The
sorry.
privileged class don't have to evolve.
But why not? Like, why not decide to evolve? Because it's okay. So for example, there are white folks who aren't on that racist bullshit, and I think that the reality is it has to do with who you grew up around. If you grew up in the suburbs, you're only around black people, or only around white people, and you never see people of color except for the ones you see on the news. Maybe it might not be so strange for one to have this ill-conceived notion of what it means to be a person of color, and not instead of realizing that there's good and bad in everyone. But you look at for things like you look at the maps of the election from the election for president, how it really looked like the red places were places where there was only white folks around. But if you look at all the blue places in the country, it was cities and places where there are more melting pots. And I just wonder, why is it that, you know, why is it as people that more of us don't evolve to understand that being a negative, hateful, taking person is not good for us all as a whole, and just understand that us caring about one another, there's real value in us caring about one another and looking at each other one another with respect and treating each other with respect.
Well, like I think the Arthur and great speech and teacher Tim Weiss talked about it, and I think Chris Rock touched on it too. You have the concentration of minorities in the cities, and out in the suburbs and further out in the more rural areas, it's predominantly basically all white. And if you didn't have to, you didn't come up with black people or Latin or Native American people around, you've never had to deal with hey, what should I say or what shouldn't I say? And you have to understand also in America, they white people owned slaves in America right up until 1940 in parts of Alabama and Texas and stuff like that. So that's 20 years before I was born. And so once slavery stopped, it wasn't, hey, we're just going to treat these people equal, everything's cool. They had, black people had to write to get rights to be treated civil rights. That's just right for you to treat me nice.
Right.
That's when you really think about that. That's crazy. And in modern society, you don't have to deal. You never, not really have to deal with minorities really. But as it's changing, white people are dying off at a large amount. And the influx of well, they tore off the middle class, so they have to replace those middle class workers with other workers. So that's why the big influx of people from Mexico, Thailand, or wherever other parts of the world they come from. And a lot of these countries aren't white countries where they're influxing in from like they did just be prior to the Civil War and stuff like that. And right after the Civil War with the great immigration, people were coming from, great immigrations coming from Europe and places like that.
Century.
Yeah, and so now all of these other people that are coming to America are tan people, and they don't look like the people that are in power.
But my question is, why does it? Okay, so a lot of times I think about the whole idea of the Bible talking about the reason why Jesus was born poor is so that Jesus would understand the plight of poor people. You know what I'm saying? Like all of us can imagine what we would do if we were rich, but it's very hard to imagine what you would do if you have had things to have nothing. So my idea is, so maybe the same thing happens with color. Like, you know, maybe the oppressed are the only ones able to see oppression, except for the fact that some don't. You know, some who are privileged still see, you know, oppression. For example, like just one example of something. You know, you think about all those people who are born into trust fund babies. You know, not every trust fund baby sits there and when they turn 18 and accepts their family's money. Some people have some guilt regarding that, which maybe one may say is foolish or not. But I remember hearing a documentary about one guy who is a trust fund baby who doesn't really want his family's money, even though he's, you know, gonna be an heir. But he's but he still works every day at the constructions because he feels it's more important to earn a dollar. But like, so why is it that that's so rare for people to see the light, if you will, like to see that hating that we're all brothers, that you know, color's an illusion. You know, why is it that so few people have the ability to see that?
Because it's taught. Western civilization literally tears at the fabric of humanity globally. And it comes from a leader's point of view. Just like when you went to college, they teach you about Aristotle, Plato, and all of these people. And they're great philosophers and doctors and things of that nature. But they never once told you where they went to school and learned how to read, learn how to write, and all these other things.
Which is where?
Africa. They've basically turned the hourglass upside down. At the top of the pecking order is white, at the bottom is black. But that's not how it originally was, because black was the center of the universe. There was no other color. We are God's initial gift to earth, God, goddess, whoever, whatever it may be. We know for a fact that we weren't a tadpole when the lightning struck the water and then we morphosized and walked out of the water and became human beings, or we evolved from apes. So I can't remember the name of the book of the guy who's the father of evolution. Basically, he's an idiot. Nothing he put to paper is factual.
You talking about Darwin?
Darwin, an idiot. Nothing he wrote makes any sense. None of it is quantified through science or anything.
Well, you know, I remember hearing about when you started talking about Africa, ancient Egypt, and Kemet, and things like that, where they had all the schools and learned philosophy and everything like that. I'd heard someone talk to me about the idea that the reason why the philosophers, whether it be Aristotle or Socrates, all those cats had so many difficult issues with things, with whether it be, I don't know whether or not who committed suicide or whatever, but basically the whole thinking was that their learning was incomplete, that they didn't go for the full lifetime of learning that one would need in Kemet, and thusly they had a bastardized version of philosophy. But it's always wild how, and I'm not trying to say anything bad against anybody, but it's just really interesting to know that whenever somebody talks about the beginning of thought, the beginning of democracy, the beginning of mathematics, they always talk about Greece, when meanwhile that those were the Greek philosophers and what have you were students, most of whom in Kemet, and I think was it Alexander the Great went in there and burned up all the libraries and stuff, so as to get rid of the proof that knowledge came before them. It's all interesting stuff, man. I just don't understand like why it is that hatred is so accepted. I mean, it just disturbs the heck out of me when you look at the things like Carl Palladino, what's going on with the school board and the fact that he could come out and say such disgusting things about.
Yeah, and he's an educator.
Yeah, he's supposed to be.
He's an educator.
Right.
He's supposed to. His sole purpose in life is to focus his energies on educating the next generation.
I wouldn't say his sole purpose in life, but his the charge he accepted as a member of the school board.
Yes, is to enlighten and embellish the up and coming children, and so they
enrich them, right?
They enrich them, and so they can go out into the world and make the world a better place. And then when you say the First Lady of the United States is a monkey and she should go back to Africa, well, she's not from Africa. I think Barack's one of his parents was from Africa.
Right.
And so, and you want somebody to die of mad cow disease, and what grown person would say that? Just, it stuns me that like that would come out of his mouth, and then he thinks he's just going to walk into the school board on Monday like nothing happened.
Right. One of the things I thought was really interesting was right after his after his statement came out, they would say, Carl Palladino made statements that some say are racist. Like that was the line in the news, that for the first couple of days his statements are statements that some are calling racist. Like what do you mean some are calling racist? Like the only way you couldn't think it's racist is if you didn't hear it. You know what I mean? Like the idea that to even say his statements were racist and to get behind, or to have that be the point that people were making in the news, they were running away from that. And even to this day, even to like I heard some people saying yesterday, his racist statements was something I hadn't heard from the beginning of the week. But I even heard this morning, on Channel 2 News, I forget the name, Monica something. She's really pretty. I don't know who that lady is. On in the morning on Channel 2 News, but she had said something where she didn't basically just go out and say his racist statements. And I also wonder, when you look at people who are in the pictures with him on when they were showing the videos of him, just at some random stock photo, like how must it feel if you're not a racist person or a prejudiced person to be in those pictures with him as they're showing over and over and over?
Hey, they trying to
guilt by association.
They trying to get a hookup. He got a couple dollars, they trying to get a hookup. But even if it's not a racist statement, how comfortable would parents feel if this gentleman walked into a classroom of fifth graders and spoke like that to them? You're in the Board of Education and spoke like that.
How can you tell children we need to treat each other with respect? You need to have a certain decorum with which how you deal with your fellow classmates.
Yeah.
Yet this man is saying, damn that, my First Amendment right gives me the right to say whatever I want to anybody and damn them. Like, what kind of insanity is that? And how are you in a position of leadership? And his number one goal is to make as much money as he can make. That's why he can run his mouth like that, because he's a billionaire, and there's nothing anyone can do at least nothing they can do to hurt him in this life. I mean, even his son basically tried to separate his company away from his father's comments based on not trying to harm their company. But Carl Palladino already made his billions. He don't care. He don't give two shits about.
Sit on the money he made. Yes, of course.
It's insanity, man. I just don't understand what's up with that. But then, just speaking on that, I wanted to go back to something we had talked about, and maybe I should go back into it. I think I will go back into it in the next segment. But it's just really wild to me, like how Carl Palladino's name has gotten across the country for his hatred and how how I don't understand how people can support him. I don't understand I don't understand how I don't understand why is it that people are unable to see how toxic racism